Today in the United States is Halloween, so on Halloween we put on a costume. So I'm going to put on a costume today because everyone in Los Angeles is changing his or her external identity in an exotic way. So I'm putting on what I consider to be an exotic uniform or costume for Halloween. And I have two questions in mind, two questions that bother me. One is a personal question and the other is a question that has to do with sociology. All right, putting on the uniform. The bottom piece is a piece of cloth that people in India from all types of, mostly Hindu, have been wearing for centuries. Centuries and centuries. And the Vaishnavas, whether in the Pandavas' time, or whether in Lord Chaitanya's time, or after, have always been a minority group of people who have been wearing, at least if they were men, this piece of cloth. That's a historical fact. This top piece is also something that the Vaishnavas have been wearing actually for a very recent amount of time, because it can be proved that it was brought over along with the Afghan invasion of Islam, or from Islam, towards India. And this three-button shirt is, again, something that the Vaishnavas are in very small minority in terms of wearing them. In other words, people who wear this type of shirt are much greater outside the Vaishnava fold than inside the Vaishnava fold. So my two questions are this. A, why is it that I feel somewhat comfortable wearing this type of dress only on one day of the year in North America, that is on Halloween? Why? Second question, which is a sociological question, why is it that on Halloween, and on Halloween only, do the large mainstream American society actually connects much more than any other day of the year with devotees of Krishna, when devotees of Krishna go out in their traditional Vaishnava clothes or Indian clothes to chant the holy name of Krishna? Why is it that on Halloween there's a good connection and people can identify with the devotees and there's a rapport? Why? I mean, think about it. Halloween is the day of the year when Americans can temporarily suspend their normal material identity and put on an identity that is completely different from theirs, that is as exotic as you want, sky's the limit. On that day is the day when, hey, there's a connection and there's a rapport between the non-devotees and the devotees, a lot more than other days. Why? We have to ask ourselves this question. What does that mean about how devotees of Krishna are representing themselves? What does that mean about how non-devotees are receiving the devotees of Krishna? If the only day of the year when they can really sort of bond with the devotees is the day when they themselves are disguising their normal identity with some exotic costume. Important question, ladies and gentlemen, important question. Happy Halloween. That's the only way I can justify myself when I walk the street. I can justify the tilak, no problem. That's a Gaudiya Vaishnav symbol. But this, especially that I'm not a monk, the only way I can justify it is by saying Happy Halloween. There's normal language that comes out of your mouth, and there's also body language, what you tell people by the way you dress. So I'm going out now to meet devotees of Krishna, to chant the holy name, something which is wonderful. But what's the body language that's accompanying it? What am I going to tell people? First of all, what's our intention? Our intention is that people hear the holy name and get purified, to get that agyata sukriti, purify their consciousness by coming in contact with the all-powerful and all-purifying holy name of Krishna. Granted. But there's luggage that comes along with that, especially when you're dressed like I am now. And that luggage of bodily language that comes along with the holy name is, by the way, or PS, or before you get purified, or along with your purification, which comes from hearing the holy name, If you want to be a serious bhakti yogi, you have to dress like this. My friends, I do not want to perpetuate this message. I don't want to be part of it. I mean, I don't want to perpetuate this message. This is not what I want to tell my fellow Americans. What I want to tell my fellow Americans is, hey, look, listen to this chanting, listen to this holy name, chant it yourself, but just be normal. Be a normal citizen of America and just add Krishna to your life. Add the chanting of the holy name to your life. Okay, follow regulative principles also, if you can, and you should. But in terms of external culture, just be a vegetarian, eat what you like to eat, and dress like you normally dress. That's the message I want to give to people when I go out to chant the holy name.
We got one more
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna,
Halloween is the only day when devotees of Krishna are accepted in American society. Give me a break. So I'm driving back. It was a wonderful experience. Today actually is Narottam Das Thakur's disappearance day, and he famously said, Golokera Premadana Harinam Sankirtan, the treasure of Goloka Vrindavan has descended to this material world through the chanting of the holy name. And chanting with the devotees and sharing the holy name with others is such a sweet experience. Your heart becomes filled with a non-material type of happiness and joy. But the thing is, it's not necessary to make it Indian. It's just so not necessary. In the West, people are Western. Let them stay Western and let them just chant Hare Krishna and go back home, back to Godhead. That's our simple program. The argument I keep coming back to again and again and again is the historical fact, that when people joined Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement in Navadvip, in its budding stage, they didn't change the way they dressed. When Lord Chaitanya himself converted, quote unquote, to Krishna Bhakti as a Grihastha, he didn't dress differently the day before he converted to the day after. So there simply is no evidence that I have seen in our hagiographies of either Lord Chaitanya or great saints of contemporaries of Lord Chaitanya that mention that there was any type of change of uniform when someone became a devotee. One may have accepted the signs of a Vaishnava, such as tilak, such as tulsi beads, but in terms of just sartorial issues, in terms of clothes, there's just zero evidence that when someone converted to Gaudiya Vaishnavism, they changed the way they're dressed. That's the principle we have to transfer and translate into contemporary society today. And this principle makes perfect sense with what Prabhupada says, centuries later, namely, just put the one of Krishna in front of your local zeros. Just put the one of Krishna in front of your 0 or 2 zeros or 3 zeros, and then it becomes 10, 100, 1,000. And that instruction echoes Lord Chaitanya's instruction to Raghunath Das Goswami when he's still a Grihastha. He tells him, just externally, don't change anything, just develop your Krishna consciousness inside. And that itself echoes Lord Brahma's instruction when he tells Krishna, after he's stolen the cowherd boys and has hid them, he says that famous verse, Gyane prayasam udapasya namanta eva jivanti sanmukaritam bhavadiya varta stane stita shutikatam tanuvan manobir ye praya shojitadisho tasitrilokyam. Excuse me, I can't pronounce that third. Whoa! I can't pronounce that third line very well. The point is, stanestitaha. This is dangerous what I'm doing. Stanestitaha. Don't change anything. Stay literally sitaha, situated in your situation. And what does that mean culturally speaking? That means don't change the way you dress. just stop speculating and accept the hearing process and hearing Krishna's glories, Krishna's names, and in this way you capture the Lord who otherwise is uncapturable. So from the Bhagavatam to Lord Chaitanya to Prabhupada, and including the whole history of our tradition, we have a consistent, what seems to be a consistent picture, namely that the Gaudiya Vaishnavas never distinguished themselves from the rest of society by the way they dressed. Maybe by their tilak, maybe by their tulsi bead, but not by the way they dress. So we really have to ask the question, did Prabhupada really want to change Gaudiya Vaishnavism radically? And if not, then what are we doing in the West, adding a layer of mandatory Indian culture to a process which for centuries has been practiced locally without having to incorporate external elements of culture, or to engage external elements of culture in Krishna's service that come from a different geographical or historical period. So the holy name is magical, the holy name is the Yuga Dharma. All we need to do is give people just the holy name and tell them by our own bodily language that they don't need to add any sort of extra layer of Indianness. They can just be their decent, modest, Western selves and become Hare Krishna devotees. While it's very encouraging that people, as you can see on the footage, were all dancing with the devotees, it's also extremely depressing that Halloween is the one day of the year where there's a certain considerably larger type of bonding that takes place between the non-devotees and the devotees. It just happens to be the one day where exoticism is allowed, where there's no norms in society and everything goes, including weird, including outlandish, including crazy. It's all okay on this one day. We all put aside our identities and just anything goes. That's the one day when Hare Krishnas are accepted. And even then, you see how many people are taking photos, kind of like looking at animals in the zoo. I personally don't want to be an animal in a zoo. I don't want to be taking pictures of like a tiger is like people go to a zoo and take pictures of an elephant or a monkey or a tiger. That's not what I want to be as a representative of the Gaudiya tradition. So even on Halloween, we're still, devotees are still kind of like exotic, fun zoo animals in a way. I mean, let's be honest, right? Of course, there's 100% benefit to us and to the non-devotees. They're hearing the holy name. It's a wonderful experience. We're flooded in the nectar of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement and in the nectar of the holy name. Granted, no doubt. At the same time, at ground level, we're kind of like the exotic animals in the zoo that people take pictures of. And because Halloween is a day when exoticism and outlandishness is totally allowed, that's the day when people join us the most and sing with us the most, and there's a bondage. Why is it that, what does that tell us about what message we're giving to the people of America 364 other days a year? That is the question. Fortunately, water has already begun seeking its own level, because water always seeks its own level. So, for example, in the late 1970s, early 80s, devotees started realizing that, whoa, we can be decent, bona fide devotees of Krishna and get married at the same time. And that's completely okay within the permitted boundaries of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. And so what happened? A large majority of devotees got married. All those brahmacharis from the Radha Damodar days, they unfortunately either left ISKCON, which was a huge mistake, but if they stayed, they got married, and 99% of them got married, because water seeks its own level. So when you have a community of religious people, and that community realizes, wait a second, in our scriptures and historically, it's completely allowed and even encouraged to get married and at the same time be respectable devotees of Krishna, let's do it. And that's exactly what happened. So similarly, already now, today, there's a prise de conscience where devotees are starting to realize, just as they realized that similar thing in the 70s and 80s, they're starting to realize, wait a second, not only can we be married and be respectable devotees of Krishna, but we can also dress like everybody else in respectable modern Western society and be bona fide devotees of Krishna. Result, it's already happening. In the private sphere of ISKCON at least, in devotees' homes and in harinams, as you can see in all these pictures, it's already happening because water seeks its own level. So the future is bright. The future is hopeful.
Yeah.